you put everyone in a situation where they're more relaxed, they're not focusing on work, they can be more present. And I believe like that's where the magic happens.
Oh
And
yeah,
as a
100%.
society, we've gotten away from it. Like I'm so old school. I'm like ready to throw my computer and iPhone like right out the window. I don't like that feeling of being disconnected from other humans. I want to lean into more connection.
Welcome to Behind the Stays, a podcast that shares the stories behind your favorite boutique hotels, short-term rentals, and hospitality brands, and the hosts, operators, and entrepreneurs who've brought them to life. Every Tuesday and Friday, you'll meet the military veterans, the retired flight attendants, the tech entrepreneurs, the school teachers, the single moms, the hoteliers, and real estate investors, who are all, in their own unique ways, shaping the future of travel and hospitality. Discover how these visionaries from all over the world have built stunning landscape hotels in the mountains, designed bohemian bungalows on the beach, erected eclectic, off-grid, nature-immersed escapes, and so much more. Behind the Stays is brought to you by Journey, a first-of-its-kind loyalty program that brings together an alliance of the world's top independently owned and operated stays and allows travelers to earn points and perks on boutique hotels, vacation rentals, tree houses, ski chalets, glamping experiences, and so much more. And I'm your host, Zach Boozy-Cruz, head of the Journey Alliance. All right, friends, without further ado, enjoy the show. In just a moment, you meet Valerie Genghis, a hospitality visionary who's redefining the guest experience by blending soulful intention, authentic service, and meticulous design into her portfolio of vacation rentals. Raised in a family of restaurateurs, Valerie learned the art of hospitality from childhood. She served customers as a 4-year-old as the quote-unquote pickle girl on the food line in her father's Chicago eateries. But her journey would be anything but conventional. Driven by both a love for warm, communal spaces and a deep fascination with spiritual connection, Valerie spent years exploring the nexus of comfort, belonging, and transcendence. She managed her family's restaurants, she studied comparative religion, and she worked intimately with organizations like the David Lynch Foundation and Oprah Winfrey's team in pursuit of spiritual connection and spiritual elevation. Today, Valerie channels these experiences into Juniper Home, a boutique property management company that curates beautifully designed, minimalist vacation rentals. Every room reflects her core philosophy, that true hospitality is far more than a business. It's an opportunity to spark meaningful encounters. From ensuring the perfect lighting to orchestrating heartfelt surprises for guests celebrating milestones, Valerie and her team pay attention to every detail, forging environments where visitors find rest, connection, and even a hint of the divine. In this conversation, we explore how Valerie's early years behind the line in family restaurants shaped her guest-first mindset, why her deep dive into spirituality and working with everyone from medical students to media moguls translates seamlessly into elevated hospitality, the intentional design principles behind Juniper Home's success, focusing on how simplicity, serenity, and authenticity create transformative travel experiences, and the importance of hiring and inspiring a team who embody genuine care, ensuring that guests always feel seen, heard, and understood. All right, friends, without further ado, get ready to meet Valerie. Alrighty, folks, we are live. Valerie, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am doing well. I am very excited for this conversation because I've followed you for a bit. And as I was just mentioning before we hit record here, last night I was, just doing a little bit of prep for this conversation and looking through your website. And I felt like with every scroll, you got more interesting. I was like, wait, she did this. She's an author. Like she did like spiritual stuff for like Oprah's team. Like it was just so fascinating seeing more and more and more about you. And quite frankly, like you gave me so many different questions that I wasn't initially intending to ask you that now I just have to ask you about.
Well, I like that. That makes for an interesting interview.
Well, I sort of actually wanted to start at the beginning because if your website, or if I should say, if my stalking of you serves me correctly, you started in hospitality as a kid. Like you were working in your family's restaurant, I think at like 4 years old. I'm curious, what's the story there? Why was your family in hospitality, and what lessons did you learn about the business at such a young age?
Yeah. So My dad is a Greek immigrant, and
Wow.
uncles, cousins, everyone was in the restaurant and bar business. That's like just what they did. And so I have been in this industry like just through my family my entire life.
Wow.
When my dad was younger, I grew up outside of Chicago, and when I was younger, he had a bunch of fast food restaurants. They were called Yankee Doodle Dandy. I think
Huh.
there was like, I think between his partners and him, there was 42 stores. They might have been
Wow.
in Wisconsin, but anyway, he had these. They were like a McDonald's, like
Okay.
that, a fast food franchise, and he would take me to work with him sometimes, like if my mom was doing something. And so whenever we'd go to work, he always would like put me to work. And I wanted to, like I wanted to be involved in a little kid type of way. So
Yeah.
he'd have me like put together to go boxes, or like we had a helium tank and he'd let me blow up balloons, which is like weird now that I'm thinking about that. I remember like being on the line where they were making the burgers and stuff, and there was definite like order to how this was done, and
Yeah.
like learning the order, and like I was like the pickle girl that day or whatever. So I loved it. I thought it was fun. I felt like I had purpose. And then he would like take me somewhere fun for lunch or something after. So it was like everything around it was kind of magical.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember thinking during those years that what you like about like what you wanted to be when you grew up? Did you want to work in restaurants? Did you want to
Yeah.
be an entrepreneur? So okay, so that was
Mhm.
so the idea as you're there on the line, adding pickles to burgers. Little
Mhm.
Valerie's thinking, I'd love to do this one day.
I never wanted to do anything else really. Like I always wanted to be in hospitality. I loved restaurants and bars. I really wanted to own hotels, and
Hmm.
I'm sure I'll do that at some point. The only other thing that I was really interested in also was my spiritual life. And
Hmm.
so I remember being younger, like really young, like 12 years old, and thinking like you're going to be like a spiritual public speaker and
Huh.
you're going to help people. But I was so young. I only knew like Wayne Dyer and some of those like other popular kind of new age people. And I was like, you're going to kind of be like that. Like, because I
Hmm.
was so drawn to it.
Yeah.
So I kind of had both paths going at once. And then when I went to college, I studied comparative religious studies because I wanted to understand spirituality like around the world.
Huh.
Um, and I thought, well, I can major in anything that I want because I'm going to be in the restaurant business, and like I'll get real world a business education. So
Yeah.
that's just kind of how I played it.
Wow, wow. Was there I don't know, give us a nugget. I think you're the only person I've ever talked to that studied comparative religion in college. So what's sort of like one insight that might surprise folks about some of your study and your learning, given that I am sure you studied a vast variety of religions. Anything stand out in particular as like surprising to you?
I became really, really fascinated with like extreme religions, people that wanted to have pretty intense experiences. And so, like, I did my senior thesis on snake handling, like snake handling churches,
What?
because,
That's a thing?
oh, it's a
A
thing.
snake handling churches, like people like in churches that like handle snakes.
Handle poisonous snakes, and if they get bit by the snake, they don't take any action. Um it's based on like their level of faith, like if God's going to save them. And they'll also drink
Wow,
poison. So it's like you're
wow,
tempting this thing that if they're connected enough to it, in theory, it will save them. Like it will go
wow,
against all normal convention of what is possible. So that was just one example of like, I was fascinated with, wow, that's like pretty extreme. So,
wow.
that was that sounds weird saying this out loud, but it was something that I was really interested in. And to this day, I'm fascinated by, like cults and people that just extreme religion.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating, especially in such a contemporary age. Even like 100 years ago, maybe even like 50 years ago, maybe a little bit less weird, or I shouldn't say weird. I should say maybe surprising.
Yeah.
But in today's day and age too, right? With all the information that we all have access to, and just contemporary culture, it does seem quite surprising that things like this still exist. Have you ever been to one?
I have not. They're very kind of hidden because
Yeah, I would
that's not
imagine.
something that's like obviously mainstream or like understood. So I actually haven't had the guts to do it, to go in. It seems kind of intense. So, but I would love to have that experience. But back to why I think this happens to people, it's I think at the core of all of us, we want to belong, we want to
Yeah,
be loved, we want to be accepted, and I think it's human nature to want to be closer to God or something bigger than ourselves, even if we can't name it. It's like
yeah,
kind of like how we're built, that we want to
yeah,
have purpose and all that. And so when you get involved in these intense groups, there's a lot of people that you feel can see you, they understand you, you're all thinking the same way. It's comforting in a way.
yeah,
And if
yeah.
it doesn't take a bad turn, then it's like I don't see what the harm is, really.
So I was talking with some friends recently who listen to the podcast, many of whom have also been on the podcast. And we were remarking that the funny thing about the internet, right? The funny thing about hosting a podcast is you sort of are in the ears and, minds of people, lots of people every week. And yet you don't know most of those people, right? Like most of you listening to this podcast right now, like I've never met. I don't even know your names. It's crazy. And I want to change that. I want to get to know you guys. And so I want to eventually be able to throw like a behind the stage summit and do a big live event, and we'll do that one day. But that day is not today, but we do have an opportunity to meet in person because I have just been invited by the folks at IMN to their short-term rental forum that they're hosting in January 15th through 16th at the JW Marriott in Miami. This is a premier event for top operators, owners, investors, and tech providers in the hospitality space, and specifically the short-term rental space. So they've invited me to come do some live podcasting. I'm going to be speaking at the event. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And I would love for this to be the opportunity where I get to meet a lot of you in person, right? Give you a handshake, right? Give you a hug if that's who you are. And the reality is, like, I have loved hosting this podcast. It's so amazing. And I'm so thankful to be able to talk to guests every single week. But, right, my real love is people. I love networking. I love sharing ideas. I love collaborating, right? I love sharing cocktails with folks and talking about the future, right? And what better place to do that than at the short term rental forum that IMN is hosting this January? So, if I'm not reason enough to come, right? If this amazing event isn't reason enough to come, you should come because some of your favorite podcast guests who've been on this show and many others in the industry, they will also be at the event. So folks like Ben Wolf from Onera, folks like Isaac French from Live Oak Lake, folks like Mauricio Padilla and Emily Padan from Hinter, and folks like Matt Orley from Red Cottage, and so many more. As I mentioned, I'll also be podcasting live at the event. So once you register for the event, you'll get the opportunity to apply to be on the podcast. So if that's something that you'd like to do, I'd love to give BTS listeners preference to be featured at the actual event. Now, here's the kicker, right? So this event is January 15th through 16th in Miami at the JW Marriott. It's going to be absolutely amazing, right? But early bird pricing is available, but it ends this Friday, November 22nd. And because you're a listener of the show, you can use the discount code BTS, that's BTS as in behind the stays, for an extra 15% off that lowest rate. But again, that expires Friday, November 22nd. There's still plenty of time to, register for the event after. But if you want the best possible deal and you want 15% off of that best possible deal, be sure you register before Friday, November 22nd and use the discount code BTS at checkout. If you have any questions about the event, feel free to shoot me an email directly at zach@joinjourney.com, and I would love to share more details with you. But if you're ready to register, you can head on over to events.imn.org/STR25. You can lock in your spot, and then I will see you in Miami this January. Again, that's events.imn.org /STR25. If that's too long to remember, just scroll on down to the show notes and I have the link there. All right, guys, enjoy the episode. I think about sort of like these moments and I've had a couple of these moments where, you're on a plane or you're in some sort of like public setting and something happens. Like there's like an earthquake, or somebody like faints on the plane, right? And there's all this concern, and then all of a sudden, everyone in it's like an extreme happening, and then everyone in that immediate vicinity, for some reason, you all start talking to each other, and you're all like, you all feel connected in a weird sort of
Absolutely.
way because something like very unexpected or extreme happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that it's like that, but to the nth degree of we are
Well, and they're
voluntarily.
creating those experiences on purpose for you
Exactly.
to have
Exactly.
that visceral reaction,
And then
and then you
connection.
all come together. I mean, that's kind of interesting that your mind went there. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, this is behind the scenes, folks, who are like, did I tune into the wrong podcast today? No,
I
this
think
is,
people are like super interested in being able to have higher states of consciousness and to feel connected and to believe in something. I mean, obviously they're interested. It's not about, I've gone so far past like just regular organized religion now, but um, at the end of the day, people want to belong to something,
yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
they want to belong to something, and they also want to believe that there is some sort of like reason for things, I think, right?
Absolutely, because it's so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is so much. You want, I think the human mind wants to believe that there's like some order or structure or like reason to all of this. And sometimes I think there isn't, and sometimes I think there is. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
Wow.
this is a lifetime pursuit of trying to understand like what's really going on.
Well, and I'm going to take a leap here and sort of connect the dots here. This might totally fall flat, but I think, right, the connection to all of this from a hospitality perspective is that in hospitality, when we're creating these boutique hotels or we're creating these very memorable luxury vacation rentals, what you're trying to design is you're trying to design an escape, right? For folks, you're trying to design an experience, and your hope as a host or as an operator of these places is that when guests come, there is something about the experience there that is life changing and memorable, or that it removes the guests from their day to day sort of
Mhm.
experiences, and it's transcendental in a sort of way like that. That is the
Absolutely.
operator's desire.
I mean, you just like totally nailed it. And it's most people cannot articulate what you just clearly laid out, but like that's how I think every day at work. I because this is like it almost feels like I was meant for this because this has been
Mm,
my entire life. And so to me it's obvious like you're giving people an experience. It's like all in the details. It's in like the unseen energy that's happening from your staff. It's everything. It's the linens, it's how the house smells, it's the gifts, it's the attention you put on. Like every single thing matters.
yeah,
And it's you create sometimes life-changing experiences for people, especially in vacation rentals, because a lot of time it's like family and friends coming together. Maybe they haven't seen each other for a long
yeah,
time. Like I feel like major things are happening in these houses.
yeah,
And I think there's a lot of healing going on. I
mm,
think there's growth going on. It's not just people going on vacation. It's
yeah,
totally not that.
yeah, yeah. It's
So,
so funny. It's so funny you say this. I was recently on a vacation with my extended family,
mhm,
and we're at a point now where several of us are married and have a kid or two, and there's something about sort of family vacations, extended family vacations, that bring out like I think the best and then also the worst in you,
totally.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and it was really interesting because as we were all together, I was realizing like, oh my gosh, this thing about, a person in my family, in case they're listening to this, I won't name their names. And I was observing this thing. I'm like, wow, that thing that they're doing has literally bothered me since they were like a child. Like they've literally always done this. And the thing that they do always gets under my skin. And then later that evening, we were on the back porch. It was a beach house. We were
Mhm.
looking over at the beach, and I was having a drink with this sibling of mine, and I just like mentioned it to them. And then what ended up happening is they ended up explaining to me how they've got this deep insecurity, and this is why they do that, and this
I
is
love
the
that.
reason why they. And it was like it turned into this opportunity of like bonding that like I never would have expected or experienced. So to your point, those sorts of conversations and those opportunities for healing or reconciliation or even just like deeper knowledge of self are totally happening on these vacations.
Absolutely, because like I think let's take it a step further. It's like, well, two things. First of all, we live in a society where like everyone's on Zoom calls. They're like
Yeah,
texting each other. There's like no face to face interaction. Like I don't even understand that. Like I have to be with people.
yeah,
This is how I like live. I have to feel them and
yeah,
like be looking into someone's eyes to like deeply connect to a person. So first of all, that's all gone out the window. So
yeah,
now you put everyone in a situation where they're more relaxed, they're not focusing on work, they can be more present. And I believe like that's where the magic happens.
oh
And
yeah,
as a
100%.
society, we've gotten away from it. Like, I'm so old school. I'm like ready to throw my computer and iPhone like right out the window. I don't like that feeling of being disconnected from other
Mm,
humans. I want to lean into more connection. So
mm,
I like the idea of retreats, vacation homes, trips with your friends, your family. Like, I need that. Like, I need oxygen. And because I think so much comes out of it. And
yeah.
if you're with the right people, it's incredible. It's life changing.
Yeah. Wow. So you have a deep sense as a young child that you've got a calling or there's something very unique about how you see the world and you're destined to help other people. I don't
Mhm.
know, evoke that in other people or awaken other people's spirits or you use whatever language you want. But then you are thinking you go into the restaurant business. Do you end up going into the restaurant business or does life lead you on a different journey? And then I guess how do you get to Juniper Home, which is what you're doing today, the very beautiful luxury vacation rental management company? How do fill in the blanks for us a little bit?
Um, yeah. So again, like I love hospitality. To this day, like I don't think anything makes me happier than like a killer dinner party or like going to a great restaurant, having a beautiful glass of wine and like an amazing meal. Like I love it. I need it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this has been with me forever. My family made a huge deal out of parties at our houses and like everything. This was important to us. So
yeah.
I, of course, was going to go into the restaurant business. So at 15 years old, my first like real job out of like babysitting, I got a job with Let Us Entertain You, which is a huge restaurant group in Chicago. And
Okay.
I worked in a bakery. Like, okay, so that was my job. It was my first taste of corporate, like a corporate restaurant group. And I was like, this is kind of interesting. It's very like you have to go by the book and everything is like has a rule, a procedure. You have to do it that way. And I was like, this feels like I'm a little bit like in prison. So
Mm,
I didn't love that, but I wanted the experience. Then I went into the restaurant business with my dad, did all the things. I waitress, then I bartended, then I became a hostess, and then that moved pretty quickly. And then I started managing, hiring, training, like the whole nine yards. And I ended up doing that for 15 years. Helped my friend open a couple bars, get him set up, get that situated, and then I was like very happy. Like I loved it. I
yeah.
worked a lot. I was really good at the job. But more importantly, like I interacted with so many people on a daily basis. And I felt like this thing inside of me that could possibly help people or just have like a deeper connection with someone. It was happening all day at work because
Mm,
sometimes we'd have like 1,000 covers on a Saturday night. Like, so I was
jeez.
interacting with just like so many people and it was giving me juice. It was giving them juice. And so I started marrying the idea of spirituality and hospitality like since I was 20 years old, I think.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, I could see the connection.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, these are, as you described, right? These are moments where, I mean, Ryan Colleen, who is the founder of the Annex Hotel in Toronto, which is an incredible property, he said this to me several times. I don't think it's him who said it, but he's the voice I hear when I hear this quote, which is that, in hospitality, it's all about it's sort of like, it's the illusion of perfection, right? It is
Mhm.
this idea of like, our job as hospitality entrepreneurs, whether you're a hotelier or you're serving at a restaurant, is to make the guest or whoever you're serving feel like they are in like the perfect situation, right? Like, and
Absolutely.
perfection is an ideal.
Mhm.
It's something we strive for. It's often something we fall short of, but that sort of framing, I feel like, is continuous with what you're saying. So you're bringing people into this moment, this environment where everything is perfect. The lighting's great, right? They look better when they go to the bathroom and look at themselves in the mirror because the lighting is perfect, right? It smells
Right.
good in there. They're eating delicious food, drinking delicious wine, and it is this retreat. Even if it's only a couple hours, it's a retreat and a disconnecting from the day to day, from the ritual of the day.
A
And
hundred
and
percent. You're
and
creating magic for them, really.
you are,
It's
and
not just dinner. It's not
it's
just
not just dinner. It's never just dinner when done right.
it's never
So
just dinner. No.
so how do you then decide to make your entrance into vacation rentals? How do you go from restaurants to homes?
Okay, so it was 2010, I think. My mom was really sick. She had stage 4 breast cancer, and my
Jeez.
dad got like an incredible opportunity to sell all his restaurants. And we talked about it, and I was like, absolutely go for it. Like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. Mom's sick. I don't care. I'll just go open some bars myself or whatever I'm going to do. Don't worry about me. Sell everything. So he
Yeah.
does. He gets out. I spend like, I don't know, maybe 8 months with my mom. We like went to Portugal. We traveled all over
Mm,
the US, spent a ton of time with her. Didn't work. She passes away.
mm.
It was horrible.
I'm so
And
sorry.
it was bad. Like, it was
Oh.
probably it was the lowest point of my life. And that's when I learned to meditate. I
Mm,
learned transcendental meditation, and in one meditation, I was a completely different person. Now
mm.
it's like everything that I had ever studied and thought about, like, became integrated in my body, and I like was that thing.
Huh.
So for 2 years, I worked for the David Lynch Foundation. I went all over the country speaking about meditation. I worked with Oprah Winfrey for 2 years because she
Wow.
brought this form of meditation into her um, company in Chicago and Los Angeles and New York. So I did that. We went into medical schools. I worked with everyone, financial guys, marketing, it doesn't matter. I did it. So that was for 2 years. Loved my job, but I was making like $15 an hour working for a foundation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It did bring me a lot of joy. But at some point, I was like, okay, I want to get back into hospitality, and I want to be successful. So, um, I got back into real estate a little bit, started working with a real estate developer in Colorado, went out to the Bay Area, started buying homes, fixing them, flipping them. COVID happened. I left. I went back to Boulder, ended up buying 3 homes in Vale and 11 homes in Southwest Michigan, where I'm operating. We
Wow.
had some investors. I brought a designer in, fixed them all up, and I started managing them. So it was like
Wow.
no big deal. I'm like, I can do this. It was easy for me. Got cleaning people, maintenance, loved the guests. I was doing everything. About a year into it, people started contacting me to buy the homes and keep me on as their property manager. So it was like
Huh.
pretty organic. And I was like, okay, I'm going to follow the signs. And so I sold Vale. I got rid of that. I had to pick one spot. It was a little too much for me. So focused on Michigan, sold all 11 homes, kept the contracts in place. That was 2 years ago. And now we're at 85 homes.
Wow.
It just
85?
grew. It grew. It was very difficult. I had to learn a whole new business. Um, I really leaned on all of my friends in the vacation rental industry. They were amazing. that whole industry has embraced me and helped me beyond like what I could ever have imagined. I got myself a mentor. I worked with her 3 days a week for a year. She helped me build my whole business, structure it properly. All the finances were in order, the staff was in order, and it's running. It's amazing.
Wow. Wow.
So I had a lot of help along the way, but I asked for that help. I had to reach out because I was not going to fail.
Yeah.
And
Wow. Okay.
so,
That's insane growth in a very, very short period of time. What was sort of the pitch? Like what about Juniper Home was different?
I think we really leaned into design.
Yeah.
I didn't take every home, even like when I felt like I needed to. I just was like, I'm not going to do it. I felt like I was building a brand. And because I started with those 11 core homes that I had control over and made them gorgeous with beautiful photography, the website was pretty, like all of that stuff, people noticed. And
Yeah.
then our reviews were pouring in, they were awesome. The staff is great. Like everything kind of was working and word got out. So the whole business, especially over the past year, has just all been referrals.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. That is remarkable.
I
How
mean,
has
it was
that
a
been?
lot of work. It wasn't
Of
like it
course.
just happened, but uh, also I think like years of experience came into play that helped because this is
Yeah.
a hospitality industry, 100%.
Yeah. 100%.
Hmm.
Uh, How do you, I mean, you strike me as somebody who you're very, in tune with people. You clearly have uh, a way of, I think, knowing people, maybe even better, not better, maybe better than they know themselves, but like you can identify things with people. You connect with people very easily. I would imagine that it might be hard to manage properties from all over the place, 85 properties. That's a lot without being able to deliver that, that personal experience or not even personal experience. I would imagine you'd want more time to give your full attention to every property. You strike me as somebody who would like really obsess over being able to like deliver, exception at every turn within every property. That's hard to do at scale. How has that been for you?
Um, it's my staff. It's not me. I think I showed them the vision
Yeah.
at the beginning. I mean, I was like absolutely involved in every single decision, every area of the company. They have all been very clear of who we are. Like we don't, it's not like there's no identity crisis going on at this company. We
Yeah.
know who we are. They all got it. I didn't hire anyone that I felt like wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
And I think they like their jobs. I think I don't micromanage them. I picked the right people. That is key. And right now it's an all female team. They are just tapped into the idea of like, this is who we are. This is how we do things. We create magical experiences for our guests. They care. I mean, I look at the conversations that like our guest services team is having with these guests and like it makes me want to cry because they're
Wow.
so amazing. We pay attention. I've taught them how to pay attention and create things for the guests, but like it's also in them. Like they're getting the juice from it, this
Yeah.
team. So it's not really me anymore, it's the team.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that speaks a lot to your leadership, though, because it's very hard to cultivate a strong culture like that, especially as you scale.
I mean, I
What?
made some mistakes. I picked some people that weren't right for the business. It was very painful. And I
Mm,
remember thinking like, don't do that again. Like
yeah.
you better like pick up your spidey sense, like kick it up a notch. So I learned. I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely made mistakes along the way, but I've gotten better and clearer.
When you think about designing a space with, given sort of your background, your I don't know, your other life or whatever in sort of the spirituality space, how do you think about like bringing that into the design of your homes? Anything like tangible or specific that you pay close attention to?
Uh, I'm obsessed with this subject. So, because when I walk into a space, like I'm so sensitive, I feel everything. It's
Mm,
like I can feel the quality of the air. Like everything is so obvious to me and it affects me. So For me personally, I like obviously a clean space, but I like a minimalist vibe, like, because I want the exterior is a reflection of the interior, and I like space. I like silence. I like peace in my environment. So I try and bring that when I have control over the space, like into the feeling of
Yeah.
whatever we're walking into. So I constantly am taking notes when I'm in different hotels or resorts or restaurants. I'm taking pictures of like what plates are they using, like what did I love about that space. I have pages and pages of notes, but really I always remember when it's incredible because it affects me so deeply. So I try in any space that I'm working with, I try and like recreate that, and I'm basically going by feeling.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the
Do you,
designer that I've worked with, like she's been with me now for 4 years. She knows now, like she knows, she gets me.
yeah. Yeah. Do you ever walk into a space? I guess here's a better question. How often does the space tell you a story about itself, and how different is that story depending on the space? I get meaning, do you feel like you walk into a space and kind of project your vision, your vibe, if you will, directly into the space, or do you often find, like, do you take time to like listen to the space and try to understand what it might be communicating?
Yeah, but probably both. I definitely I'm drawn to certain spaces. Like I was just in New Orleans, I don't know, like a couple weeks ago, and I went to this hotel that also had like a fabulous restaurant and bar in it, and it was an old convent, and
Wow.
like the lighting, the staff, the menu, the vibe, the arched doors, like everything in there was so perfect. Like I just felt my nervous system just be like, thank you. Like, and
Wow.
I paid attention. I was like, okay, I like this. Like, that's what I do all day long. I'm like, I like this. This feels good to me. Like, remember that. Because I'm assuming if it feels good to me, it's going to feel good to other people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm always moving towards peace in a space. And for
Hmm.
me that means like no clutter, quiet design. Again, I kind of like a minimalist look, but and beauty. I mean, beauty has so much energy that it's like you want your space to be as beautiful as possible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes that's with an almost empty space.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Do you? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it came to my mind. There's this place in Austin. No, it's in Houston. It's called the Rothko Museum. He's a famous artist. And like basically his paintings are like black, just like black on a canvas. But the space is so incredible and has so much energy, but like there's almost nothing in there. And
Hmm.
like every time I walk in there and sit down, I'm just like, wow, this is everything. But it's
Wow.
nothing, but it's everything.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so like places like that stand out because it's like, what is that? What is
Yeah.
it? That's what I'm chasing.
It actually reminds me. There's this awesome brand in the space called Hinter, and Emily Padan and Mauricio Padilla are the founders of Hinter, and I've gotten to know them and Emily a little bit more. She's been on my podcast a few times. But anyways, Hinter, when you walk into one of their spaces, they're deeply, immersed in nature, and it's
Mhm.
very, very minimalist. It's basically like a glass box, right? And there's like a
Love it.
sofa. There's like a beautifully designed, fireplace, a gas fireplace,
Mhm.
and then there's like the kitchen, and then the bedrooms are very, very simple, and it's literally one of like the simplest places I've ever been, and yet it feels so, and it is so unbelievably elevated because of its simplicity, and in their context, right? Because there's glass everywhere, and you're in a forest. The forest does the work of like communicating, right? The vibe and the art, so you don't
I
need
can
anything
almost
else.
feel it through you.
Yeah,
Like, yes.
it's so
Bringing the
it's like so
outside
good.
in,
It
that
does.
is fabulous.
It does. It does.
I
I did
love
have a
it.
question for you, Valerie. So, it's one thing to be able to design these experiences and pay all this attention to detail and bring that detail into the spaces that you own, it's, I would imagine, kind of difficult, or might be difficult to convince people that, the owners of the homes that you manage, that it's worth the investment, or it's worth the time, or, hey, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to do this instead. How have you reconciled sort of bringing your vision into a space that you don't own? Has that been challenging? Are people on board? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, at first that was really challenging for me because I was like, oh. But then we, as a team, which how we make all of our decisions, just decided like if there was a house that really did not like align with us, like we're just not going to take it. Okay, so it's
Yeah,
like I know that's hard to do because you obviously want to grow your business and all that, but the pain of it, like being so outside of your brand and like everyone feeling uncomfortable with the space, like it's just not worth it. So
yeah,
I think we've been really lucky. We have awesome homeowners, and a lot of the homes have come from real estate agents, so they're new buyers, and it's overwhelming for people to like put this whole thing together to rent
yeah,
out their house. So a lot of people have worked with our designer, and so she kind of is like their Sherpa. She's like
yeah,
guiding them through this process and making their home super comfortable. And it doesn't have to be my taste, but it does have to, it's got to have something going on. It can't be like a junkyard.
yeah,
We just don't take those homes because it's not right for us. So I'd say overall, most homeowners that we've worked with have been very excited to make their house gorgeous.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, those are the
They
right kind of
want to be
people.
successful too with all of this.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I think that's just good. Like, that's good research you guys have done. That's good interview, the interview process to make sure that they're aligned with the brand. And then when it comes to actually executing what it takes to deliver a great experience, folks should all be on board. I am curious, is there a space that you like to pay more attention to than others, or where do you start in when you're thinking about reviving a space?
Um, I'm always like super weird about the bedroom. Like,
Mm,
I feel like we spend so much time sleeping and in bed. Like, I I need like all white sheets. I want like an organic mattress. Like I need the space where I'm sleeping, where I'm kind of like possibly outside of my body or whatever stuff is happening. Like I need that space to be pure and beautiful and simple and clean. Like it's
mm,
really important to me because we spend like a third of our lives in bed.
yeah, yeah.
So I do at the company, we put TVs in the bedrooms, but when I first started, I had a rule like no TVs in bedrooms. Like that
Yeah.
is not good. And people freaked out. They wanted to lay in bed and watch TV. So I had to give in, but I'm pretty adamant about my bedroom needs to be uh it needs to have that like clear energy, clean vibe because there's just too much happening when you're sleeping.
Yeah, yeah. Do you guys hear stories from guests that remark about what their experience of the place was like? Are there any like fun ones that you think, you know, do a great job of accurately depicting or describing the experience that you guys seek to always deliver to guests?
We've had some just extraordinary emails and phone calls from guests. Like I wrote about one of the girls. She had cancer. She was
Mm,
dying. All of
mm,
her friends uh, got together and stayed at one of our houses. And they decided on the trip that they were all going to get matching tattoos. The tattoo had to do with the girl that was really ill. So we got a tattoo artist. They did the tattoos. It really like bonded this group. They had an amazing experience and like she passed away and then
wow.
I interviewed everyone that was in the house. It was like such a powerful story, and they did say like you guys were a part of this. You took care of us. We didn't have to worry about anything. You gave us time and space to be together, like in the last weeks of her life. And I
Mm,
was like, is this happening like right now? Like this is what I'm not dreaming of someone passing away, but I was like, this is what I want.
mm,
Like
yeah.
this is happening. And so that was kind of a more dramatic story, but we get tons of feedback like, wow, this was like really special and you guys were great. And like, thank you for surprising us with dinner reservations or birthday cake or whatever we're doing. But in my mind, again, I'm just trying to make it so they don't have to think. They can just
Yeah.
be with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there you guys seem to really like personalize your guest experiences, and you're thinking very intentionally about these folks. How are people giving you this information? Like how are you collecting these insights? Are you guys doing a bunch of research on guests ahead of time, or are you just letting people like fill out a survey, or how are people communicating to you guys in detail that can be actionable? Something about why they're choosing your stay.
Yeah, we always ask that. So I remember I did my own guest services for a year or so. And so I learned the right questions to ask people, like, why are you coming? Like, are you celebrating anything? And then
Mm,
like really getting to know the guests. So if we ever hear like it's someone's birthday or an anniversary or they have a dog, like we're getting them a cake with their name on it. Like we're
yeah.
going to get the dog, something cute like gourmet dog biscuits or whatever. We're just like paying attention to what they're doing. And then we try the best we can to create some sort of, surprise experience for them.
Yeah.
Obviously, when that book Unreasonable Hospitality came out, I was like, well, yeah, duh, like of course you should do that. But he took it to another level, which I was like, this is incredible. But I
Yeah.
think we should all be doing that because we're in a business that we want to make people happy and create experiences for them. Like
Yeah.
it's like at the heart of what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet so few people are, I don't know if it's like, I haven't quite figured this out. Is it just because it's expensive? Is it because people don't have the time? Is it because people just don't care? Like, why isn't that standard of hospitality that you just described? Right. That's maybe the standard you might expect at like a 5-star hotel when you're, a platinum elite member or something like that. Maybe you could get something close to that. Maybe not even, close to that. But why isn't that sort of more standard in vacation rentals? Why do you think that is?
You know what, Zach? I don't know. I have the same question. I keep asking myself, working on this book, like, are you born with it? Or is this learned behavior? Or what is it? Because I just
Mm,
noticed that some people, they're just going to go the extra mile, like, no matter, because they want to. It brings
yeah.
them happiness. It's like
Yeah.
a dopamine hit. And then some people just kind of like aren't built for it. So
Mm,
it doesn't even cross their mind. It's not in their consciousness. So I don't know. I don't know either. I've gone through hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, and some people have it. It's just totally natural. It's
yeah.
just like I want to do it. And then some
Yeah.
people it feels like they're just not going to get there. And that's okay. Maybe
Yeah.
they're better like in IT or something. I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. 'Cause I'm a hospitality girl. So I'm not sure. I just
Well,
know that for me, like randomly, my friend asked me to help her with her charity event in the middle of like small town Iowa. I walked into the charity event. I had been out of town. I'm like, what do you want me to do? She's like, I need you to waitress. And I was like, okay, so I haven't waitressed since I was like 19 years old. And I was like, I'm going to do it. So I'm like in an Elks Club. I didn't even know what that was. And so I was like, I am going to organize this whole floor right now. I'm going to get the bartender on board. We're going to run the food. I made 2 high school kids busboys. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I had no apron, no trays. Everything was handwritten. I was like, these people are going to have an extraordinary experience tonight. And they did. And I treated them like I was at 11 Madison Park. Like I was like, they are paying for their food and liquor. Like they are going to have an extraordinary experience. And I almost felt like I could shift the energy in the room with like my thoughts because it was so powerful. And I just walked away that night, and I was like, oh my God, this is who I am. Like, this is who I am. So if you ask me to do a job and it has to do with something like this where I'm taking care of people, I'm going to do it. And I don't care if I'm at the Four Seasons or I'm at the Elks Lodge. So is it like just in you? I can't answer this question.
yeah.
I don't know. I know it's in me, but
Yeah.
I have not figured out a way to transfer that energy into someone else if they're not already built that way.
Yeah. Oh, that was so beautiful. Just could
It like
listen to
really,
that
that was like
over and
kind of
over.
like a game changer for me that night. Cause I was like, oh, this is who you are.
This is who you are. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wonder if it's also sort of a maybe the difference between being a real estate investor in the vacation rental space or the hotel space and being, a hospitality entrepreneur in the real estate or hotel
Yeah,
space or
probably,
being a host,
probably.
right? So that nuance, you can be both, right? Most people
Mhm.
are both. Um, but maybe that nuance actually matters a lot more than we think is like, no, there is a distinction. There are people that have large collections of short-term rentals and vacation rentals. There are people that own, dozens of hotels, and if they're more of if they're a real estate investor by trade or by aspiration, they're gonna view the experience just differently than somebody who's a host or a hospitality entrepreneur by nature or aspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. But my advice for those people is like, you better get a badass hospitality person in there to really make it work. It
Yeah.
takes, there's a yin to the yang. You have to have both. You have to have, a business mind, someone that's looking at the bottom line and running the numbers, all those things that are so important, the technology, but like, it almost feels like a masculine feminine thing. Like you also have
Mm,
to have that soft touch, the love, like
yeah.
all of that too to make it whole. I mean, that's at least
Yeah.
the way I see it. I'm not good at everything. I'm not even that great at most things, but I have found other people that are awesome at the things that they do, and then I stay in my lane because I'm really good at this. So again, it makes you whole. It makes
Yeah.
the company whole.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm even thinking about some of the. I went to this really like it was a three Michelin star restaurant, and my expectation was like really 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 high because
Mhm,
it was expensive and I was paying a lot, and anyways, and so we go to my wife and I go to this restaurant, and the very first thing I thought when I walked in was like, oh, the lighting is kind of off in this place, but I was like, oh, I'll just like ignore it, like surely they'll like fix it, or maybe the reservation was like slightly early, it was at like 6 and not like
mhm.
7:30, so I was like, okay, maybe they'll just light it. They never did. Anyways,
That would have
and
made
I
me
was like,
crazy.
yeah. I mean, I was trying to be just like more like, forgiving or whatever, or assume that they knew what they were doing. Anyways, we proceed to have like, an okay meal, quite frankly. It was not the most amazing meal I had. It wasn't even close to the most amazing meal I've ever had. And the service was fine. Like people were respectful, but it was literally like nothing to write home about.
Mhm,
But and when you're in those environments and you're trying to like psych yourself up and like convince yourself that this is
mhm.
so great and so amazing because it's a three Michelin star restaurant and you're paying
Right.
all this money. And you're almost trying to convince yourself that everything's just better than it actually is, when in reality it's not. And then I compare that experience to some experience I've had with like a restaurant with like no star, where they just like nailed literally everything from the minute you stepped foot into the restaurant, the lighting, the candles, and so point being, right, that like I think this idea of like price point being this the reliable differentiator in terms of like level of service that you might expect is like really not true. It's been very hit or miss for me as like a heuristic that I can point to for like a
Mhm.
great experience. I don't know if you've had any
No,
experiences like that.
absolutely. And I think that just goes to show you like the old way of doing all of this is not the best way anymore. That like stuffy, we're going to a five-star hotel and there's gonna be a maitre d and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I think people are looking for more like that energy, that like
Yeah.
something that is more than that, not like a bunch of robots running
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
space. So
Yeah.
I think that comes with like at a feeling level. You have to have someone that can like kind of feel the energy of what's going on, and again, it's the people. You got to have the right people.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
fake that. It's not going to work
Yeah. Oh gosh.
because you're going to have
Well, we could
bad
talk for
lighting, and then you're going to have
yeah.
to be like lying to yourself. It's like being in a bad relationship or something. You're just like lying
Mm.
to yourself, and you're like, but actually this sucks, and like I want to get out of it, and you don't have good memories of it.
Yeah. Last thing on this point is I remember they had like a water menu, right? Where you like pick your water
Okay.
your water type. And before So you look at the water menu, and then they bring you like a water tasting. I
They
just
sound
remember
super annoying.
so annoying, and I remember like distinctly like trying to pretend like I could tell a different, and I was trying to like be like, oh yeah, I think this has like notes of, I don't know, like a chlorine or something. Like it's
Oh
like
my God, you're
how do you
actually making my
describe?
heart like I'm having anxiety because that's so weird and not cool. Not
Yeah,
good. Who
it
came up
was.
with that bullshit?
Yeah, that is a great question. Anyways, it was memorable for all the wrong reasons. Let's just put it that way.
That's really funny. That's really funny.
uh, well, Valerie, as we wrap here, we could clearly talk forever. But
Yes, good.
tell me about the future of Juniper Home. Like, what are some things that you're excited about? What are you paying attention to? And any sort of other like hot takes or strongly held opinions you have on the future of hospitality.
Um, Again, I do think that there's going to be a new wave of people coming in that I would say are higher consciousness, thinking in a different way about hospitality,
Mm,
more in line of what we've been talking about today. A new way of doing things. I think that's on the horizon for sure. And as far as Juniper itself, we're partnering with a pretty large real estate group, so we're
mm,
going to be going into other locations around the country. I'm really excited about it. I really like this group of people. They're amazing.
yeah.
So we're going to partner in all of their markets, and I'll see what 2025 brings. Maybe do some retreats and
Mm.
try and again marry these two things together: spirituality and hospitality.
Well, I think you are the right person to do this, and to take up that mantle and build something special in this space. But I'm so thankful for your time, Valerie. This has been a wildly fun conversation, at
Thanks
least
for
for
having
me.
me.
Um, and I am looking forward to seeing how you guys continue to grow the business and seeing how you continue to just grow your personal brand and all the great things that you're doing. So thanks for spending an hour with us, and I hope to have you back on soon.
Thanks, Zach.
Hey friends, thanks for joining us for this episode of Behind the Stays. I'd love to know what you thought of the episode. Feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram at Behind the Stays or send me an email at zach@joinjourney.com. If this is your first time tuning in, it's a pleasure to have you and we hope to have you back again soon. But if you've been a listener for a while, I'd greatly appreciate if you'd subscribe to the show if you aren't already, and then leave us a rating and review of the show wherever you're streaming this podcast. Oh, and if you know a hotelier or a hospitality entrepreneur that's building something new and novel, I invite you to introduce them to me so that my team and I can discuss bringing them on the show. Again, you can just shoot me an email at zach@joinjourney.com or a DM on Instagram. Behind the Scenes is brought to you by Journey, a next-generation loyalty program built for the modern traveler. We're looking to onboard new boutique hotels, unique stays, and the top vacation rental management companies onto our platform every day. If you're a hospitality entrepreneur who has a stay or a collection of stays with soul, we'd love for you to apply to join our alliance at joinjourney.com/alliance. Again, that's joinjourney.com/alliance. Thanks for being here, y'all. We will see you next time.